It's 7 o'clock. Is everybody ready to begin? Yeah, it should be on. I think it's low. Turn the microphone.
I think that is.
I wasn't so soft-spoken.
I have no idea which mic that is. Can you tap on that? Okay, that looks like C8. Oh, one more time, please. Feedback monster last week. I'm a little paranoid.
Now, if you can hear me, I will once again call the meeting to order at 7:02 a.m. I'd like to welcome everyone to this evening. We will go to agenda item number 3, public comments, limited to 3 minutes each person. And we have one this evening, Mr. John DeGomez. John, if you'd like to...
Yes. Good evening. You all know pretty much my story. I have a small addition to this that actually struck me today when I was draining my tank in my well house. And I looked at the calculations that were provided to me during the measuring of my well by Mr. Totten and Mr. Donald, I think is his name. You know that when they put in the Vista Ridge, I started having my well measured. So from 2013, 2014, 2015, the well was really very consistently right around 160. Well, when Mr. Totten came out in August, with Mr. Donnelly had measured 185. So I've lost, well, that's not exactly correct, but close to being actual, might have been 187, I can't recall. However, the interesting thing is that that was in August. Mr. Totten came back in October. That's 2 months later. And by my calculations, using his figures of measuring my well, I have lost, in something like 60 days, 4.6 feet. Now, I don't know where that 4.6 feet of water went, but I sure as hell didn't sell it. I didn't get any money for that loss of water. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Mr. DeGomez. Mr. Andy Weir.
Thank you. I'm Andy Weir from Bastrop. I'm with the Simsboro Aquifer Water Defense Fund. I have a domestic well in the Simsboro Formation of the Carrizo Wilcox. Just wanted to say thank you all for the hard work everybody's been doing, especially on DFC. And second is to say, last night I was in Austin at the Texas Water Foundation. And they had a film festival about films that had to do with what does water mean to you. And one of the films was presented by Environmental Defense Fund and co-authored, or the writers for it was Robert Mace, Dr. Robert Mace, who's with the Texas State University with the Meadows Center for Water and Environment. Anyway, it was a nice little video. When they post the link, I'll share it with you all. But it talks about groundwater and surface water interactions. The other thing that was announced last night was there are 2 reports. One by Mr. Mace, Dr. Mace at the Meadows Center on sustainability of groundwater in Texas. And the title of it is 5 gallons in a 10-gallon tank. And all he said last night at the presentation was that if you take the Ogallala out of the equation, because we're definitely over-pumping there, he says all the other aquifers, major and minor, are at 80% of capacity of what's sustainable. And so that's just the report goes into much detail. It's a 50-page report. You all can read all the facts and figures. But he's a well-respected professor, and he also has some policy recommendations in there that you all might find helpful. The second is a report released yesterday also by Environmental Defense Fund, and it has to do with sustainability and it has specific recommendations for groundwater conservation districts on how you can support sustainable groundwater. So I just throw that out to y'all, and hopefully next year, I said I'm a retired video maker. I used to work for the state, did educational videos. I'm happy to work with y'all to produce a video for next year's film contest, to tell whatever story you want to tell about Lost Pines Groundwater Conservation District. I think that would be exciting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there anyone else that wishes to make public comment that has not yet signed up? Okay, then we will proceed to agenda item number 4, review and approval of the minutes of the October 2021 board meeting held on October 12, 2021 for the LCRA meeting and the regular board meeting held on October 20, 2021. We will take the October 12, 2021 first. Board members, have you all reviewed any corrections? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to approve the board meeting minutes from October 12, 2021. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, now we will talk about the board meeting held on October the 20th, 2021. Any corrections, additions, mistakes? If not, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. So we have a motion and a second to approve the, to approve the minutes from October 20th, 2021 board meeting. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
No, but I'll abstain.
You'll sustain? Oh.
I wasn't there.
Oh, that's correct. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, motion carries. Agenda item number 5, consideration of and possible action on the 2022 district calendar, including consideration of and possible action on meeting times, locations, and a timeline for submission of agenda items and written materials for board consideration. We, so the staff put this together, and I know our legal counsel also assists with this. It's in order to help us get the information out to the board in time, and the staff has to really work sometimes to get it all done, especially when things are being brought in at the last minute. So it helps the staff and it helps the board, gives us more time to read over everything and be prepared. Jim or Natasha, would you like to cover what your suggestions are?
Director Smith, I'd kind of like to suggest that we break this into 3 different parts.
Yeah.
The first part is looking at the calendar for meetings for 2022. Looking at the calendar, normally we occasionally have to make adjustments to the November and December board meetings based on holiday schedules. At this point in time, our December meeting would fall on the 22nd, which is a little bit close to Christmas, but not we have the option of moving that one from the 21st to the 14th, if that would be the board's pleasure. Our November meeting should be fine with the holiday schedule, so kind of the first thing I'd like to address is just, do we want to make that change on the December meeting?
And this is for not next month, but for December of 2022. So you're suggesting that perhaps we should move it from the 22nd to the 14th to be a little bit further away from Christmas. Would anyone care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
What's your motion?
To move the meeting to the 14th of December 2022.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to move the December 2022 meeting from the 22nd to the 14th. Is there any discussion?
22nd to the 14th.
21st to the
Oh, well.
14th, I'll second the motion.
From the 21st to the 14th, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And we have a motion and a second. Are there any other comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the second part would be a consideration of meeting times. We had looked at, I had suggested perhaps we should move to 6 p.m. start times for a number of reasons, partly because of the location we were using in Bastrop required us to be out of the building earlier than usual. The other reason is actually a safety consideration because board members and people participating have to drive home sometimes late at night. But at the same time, we don't want to inconvenience any board members that might not be able to make a 6 o'clock start time. That's where I was coming from. Anyone else have ideas or care to make a motion?
Yes, ma'am, I'd just like to say, me, being a farmer and rancher and that, would be, especially in part of the year, 6 o'clock would be a whole lot harder.
Okay. Thank you for that. And it may be for others as well.
As you said, 6 o'clock, all is minimum better.
That's just about true. That's true. I wonder if we could have different meeting times for summer and winter. Well, I don't know if anybody does that. Other thoughts, comments?
Well, Cheryl, didn't we talk about maybe trying to meet in the Bastrop Public Library, which wouldn't have the same time constraints as the First National Bank?
It would have or would not have?
I would hope it would not have. But
Yeah, that's a possibility. We have not looked into that yet.
We actually checked the Bastrop Library, and they have a standing meeting on Wednesday evenings. So that's not going to be available to us unless we completely change our date and our meeting day. So that's out for the time being.
Okay. Well, I certainly don't want to make it more difficult for anyone here, to attend meetings. We can, unless someone else would like to make a motion, I'm willing to drop it.
If we can get the Historic Landmark Commission out of the Bastrop City Hall, we might be able to get our spot back there, but they bounce pretty quickly when the City Hall is open.
Well, we can certainly check.
Third Wednesday from 6 to 8, I believe, is when that. Whenever we were meeting, they would have to use the executive session chamber, and I know they were pretty unhappy about that. So, but we can check with the city again and see if that's a change. But in the meantime, I think we're probably stuck with the venues we've already approved. Well, we need to look for the characteristics of sufficient space, available and free. Then it gets up the arrows pretty quickly. We can probably get the convention center on any given Wednesday night as long as we're willing to write checks for it. But I mean, we continue to evaluate that and look for other locations if needed. Part of the reason I put the location on here is I wasn't entirely satisfied with the way the meeting in the bank training was built, and the time limit was sort of constricting on our ability to conduct business, I thought. So I wanted to see if there were any other thoughts some of their venues, but beyond the one we've already approved, the library was our other option, and like I said, they're already booked at this point. But we can revisit this in the spring. I mean, there's nothing that says action has to be taken on meeting spots tonight.
No, that's true.
Is there anything in Smithfield?
Courthouse,
That,
the county courthouse.
we may have it point in a while, so it might be worth your checking.
Would there be anything in Smithfield that would work?
The thing, probably the same size, isn't it? I mean, probably you have First National Bank there, we can look at that space and see. It's a little less central than Bastrop, but yeah, we'll keep looking and see if we can find other options. But like I say, I wasn't entirely happy with just how that space has worked for us. For a smaller meeting like this, it'd be perfect, but it would, you know, we never know how many people are gonna show up, and if we get 20 people, that room gets pretty claustrophobic pretty quickly.
Especially when we go into executive session and they have to all walk out in the hall.
Very true.
Well, I guess I'd like to suggest that perhaps, since we right now have the First National Bank of Bastrop reserved for the December meeting, that would it be okay to have a 6 o'clock meeting just in December? Would that be all right, Mrs. Shoddy? And then not make a commitment for anything else next year yet?
It's already dark anyway.
Okay, what can you do in the dark, right? Do we need a motion for that to move? I guess, would someone like to make a motion that we meet at 6 o'clock in Bastrop, in our December 2021 meeting?
I make a motion we meet this one time at 6 o'clock.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Did you have something else to say?
I was going to second either, too.
Oh, okay. All right. December 15th. Thank you. Okay, so the motion is that we will meet at 6 p.m. on December the 15th at the First National Bank in Bastrop for December only.
This year is December 15th.
Last year,
2022
is 14th. Yep, Natasha had to give me a clue. Yeah. All right. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, now the calendar.
Thank you for,
Go ahead.
yeah, so what was included in your packet was a very rough draft I came up with working with Mike Calvin earlier this year. We started working on the idea of changing how the calendar for the agenda was set, and obviously with Mike's departure, he kind of gathered dust, and so when Director Smith asked me to bring this back out, I just pulled the dust off it and sent it. But essentially, what you have is two calendars looking at, you know, if we had a meeting on the third Wednesday of the month. Currently, the Monday on the week prior to the board meeting would be when we cut off taking agenda items, begin to finalize the agenda, with the goal of having the agenda finalized in the packet reasonably assembled by the Wednesday before the board meeting. And then we would post the agenda, as you know, on the Friday of the week before the board meeting. What we instead suggested is we shift everything back by 2 days. So now we would be starting with the regular board meeting on the third Wednesday of the month. The Friday before the board meeting would be a cutoff for anyone who wanted to supply written comments to the board on an agenda item. 2 days prior to that, the Wednesday before the board meeting, we would actually post the agenda. So we'll be posting the agendas a week in advance of the board meeting and giving 48 hours for anyone to supply written comments to the board on those agenda items. Additionally, that moves back to the Monday prior to the board meeting would be when we finalize the agendas and cut off submission of reception of any documents for agenda-related items, so that we can make sure that anything that's going to be in the agenda, whether it's generated by staff, our lawyers, or third party, has all been received and can be put into the packet for the board. And doing that then also pushes back the cutoff date for agenda items to the, essentially, by this calendar, be the first Thursday of the month. So it would be basically a week and a half prior to the board meeting. What this does is it moves everything back and it gives more time for us to get the documents to the board so they have time, time to review them in their packets, assuming that the mail delivers on time. sheet so that we can make sure that we get written comments into the board in time for you to receive them, so you're not trying to read 3 or 4 different written comments from different organizations at the start of the board meeting. This is part of a concern that Director Steinbach raised, I guess, earlier this summer, so we're trying to address that as well. So this calendar just kind of, I think, it's only a 2-day shift in our process, but I think it gives us a little bit more flexibility to make sure that we get all the documents as quickly as possible and, give you all more time to make that consideration prior to board meetings.
Yeah, I think one of the benefits also is as soon as the agenda is finalized, it goes out to board members by email. And then you also are getting it in the mail, hard copy as well, giving you extra time to review everything. Every day can be very helpful. Another point in here is that the only documents that will be sent out with the board packet are items directly related to the agenda items. If people send us other miscellaneous handouts that they would like us to distribute to the board, we will just do that by email, but it won't be part of the board packet. Anything else, Jim?
I believe that covers it. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have at this point. I realize that, this is a change in process, but it's not a radical departure. We're just shifting everything back by a couple of days to try and make sure that we can get the documents to you all in a timely manner.
Any questions?
Madam President, I make a motion we accept the proposed timeline for agenda development and posting as presented.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, the motion is timeline for submission of agenda items and written materials for board consideration and for the district calendar for the agenda. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Agenda item number 6, consideration of and possible action on district surety bonds for any directors and/or any district officer or employee. Jim, Mr. Fountain, are you handling this?
Yes, ma'am. So this action, you as board members are already covered by surety bonds, underwritten by the district. This action is here to cure one of the deficiencies that was found in our audit by the state auditors. We need to have surety bonds covering any staff member that handles district money. And at this point, we currently do not have coverage for myself or Peggy. So we need to have a discussion with the board as to what level of surety bond you feel is appropriate for us as staff to be covered by. And then we need your authorization to go ahead and get that coverage issued to us. So this is just a question of how much bonding we feel we need to have as staff, and then a directive to go ahead and get that coverage taken care of.
Do you have any suggested amounts?
What's the amount of the bonds that you have on directors?
It's 10,000.
Yes, ma'am.
Jim, have you checked with other districts to see what surety bonds fees they have for their staffs?
I have not yet, sir. Given the director's coverage is 10,000, given the directors have significantly less access to district finances than we do, anywhere between 10 to 100,000, I think might be appropriate. But I don't have guidance from other districts at this point.
Do we have a deadline?
No, ma'am, we don't. As part of our management response to the audit, we said we'd have this taken care of by the end of the fiscal year, so we can come back to this in December.
The auditors didn't have a recommendation.
The auditors were no, they didn't have a specific recommendation. They were not very specific in a lot of their findings.
They were very
Do these bonds get renewed every year?
Yes, sir.
When do they come up for renewal?
We just reviewed them. We reviewed them every spring. We had to refresh the paperwork on them over the summer, just to make sure we had all with the change in the board. But we'll do another review in the spring. So we can carry this conversation over to December, if that be the board's preference.
Does that sound okay to the board?
Sure.
Yes, ma'am.
Shall we just table this? Do we need a motion for that?
Make a motion to table to the December meeting.
Thank you. There's a motion to table this until next month. To the Second. All in favor? Any opposed? This is tabled.
Jim, could you maybe do a little bit of research on that and maybe email it out to board members, maybe what a 50,000, 100,000 surety bonds, what it costs?
Yeah, I was just making a note of contact tag and see if there's a
That
standard.
way we could be better prepared.
Yes, sir.
What do our bonds cost?
I don't know that off the top of my head, sir.
We'll find out next month that too.
$200 or something?
I don't recall being a check because we harder to sign, so I think it's less than legal fees, but I couldn't tell you exactly.
Why is that always the benchmark?
Because it was signed, it was handy and you're here, so.
A bond for a notary is what, $75?
75. That's not bad. Okay, we shall proceed to agenda item number 7. Consideration of and possible action on a proposed contract for continuation of the legislative lobbyist services from the GM Ellis Law Firm, PC. Our executive committee met earlier this, actually we met October the 29th and reviewed the contract, and Mr. Ellis is here as well. Have all the board members had the opportunity to review the agreement that is proposed? And I did want to note that this is for a 2-year period, and it's not, it would start January 1st and go through for 24 months.
Madam President, I'll make a motion that we renew this contract as presented. If it were a better deal, he'd be paying us.
Thank you. Is there a second? So, okay, we have a motion and a second to renew the proposed contract for continuation of legislative lobbyist services from the GM Ellis Law Firm, PC. Is there any discussion? Do any of you have any questions for Mr. Ellis before we vote?
I do want to say, Greg, I appreciate everything you do. You do a good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Ellis, you have a new contract. Thank you.
Director Smith, I assume that gives me an authorization to execute that contract on behalf of the district?
Yes, sir, it does.
I thought you know that for sure.
I've reviewed it. What's that?
Gives him authorization to execute it, or I need to make a motion?
Well, it is, he's already the signatory on the draft presented to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Just don't want to get him in trouble before we get that bond.
They're spending a lot of money. All right, agenda item number 8, consideration of the financial report for the period of October 1st, 2021 through October 31st, 2021. Mr. Cotton.
Thank you, President Smith, members of the board. The operating fund balance for the district for the reporting period ending October 31st was $539,402.75. The tax pool fund account stood at $3,557,865.80, which gives us a grand total of $4,097,316.56. We are at a point where we probably do need to consider pulling down some of the operating funds and bringing back to tax pool. So for the December budget report, you'll probably see that we brought that back down closer to $350,000 for operating, just to keep us in line with where we normally maintain that fund balance. As far as user fees collected to date, we had projected for 2021 user fees of $1.3 million approximately, and we brought in today $1,067,565.26. With basically the 2 months left to collect user fees, we're basically on track for where we expect to be this time of year. Going into our line items, all the line items are tracking where we expect to be for this year. one-time, going through labor, the 5,000s, all of those are on track to end at either at zero or close to zero. Professional services, we are still doing very well in professional services. We have significant funding left in hydrogeology and in legal fees. And in my general manager's report, when I discuss the budget, we'll circle back to the hydrogeology budget line. But everything else is, like I said, either tracking where we expect to be for the year, or we're in a better shape. We have more money than you would anticipate, given that we're just basically 2 months left in the year. There have, as I said, we have previously noted there were a few items where we went over, and we will be coming back with budget amendments to correct those. It was miscellaneous and website fees, and largely driven by having to upgrade server storage for the Zoom video meetings, and a few other costs around the office that drove those line items over what we anticipated. So we will come back with budget amendment either in December or January to correct that. And with that, I'd be happy to address any questions you may have.
Any questions, board members? Of Mr. Cotton? All right, thank you, Mr. Cotton. Agenda item number 9, the general manager's report. Mr. Cotton.
Thank you, President Smith, members of the board. The general manager's report for November 17, 2021. For the reporting period of October 1st to October 31st, 2021, we had 12 new wells that were drilled within the district, and a single well that was registered, pre-existing well that was registered with the district. That information, you'll find that on the backside of the general manager's report. During this time period, we did conduct 3 water quality tests and engaged 35 wells. Roughly, I kind of lost count, but it was, we did complete we completed probably 95% of our annual monitoring of the district. We have about a half dozen stragglers that we still need to get out and pick up, just one-off wells in different places in the county. But we have gotten the vast majority of that done, as well as finishing another cycle through North Lee County, looking at the Credo wells up there. As I previously mentioned, we have received and responded to the draft report from the state auditor. We are waiting for the final report to come out. I expected it to be out on Monday, but I haven't heard from them since we responded to their draft, so there may be a hold up from some of the other districts that are being audited. So that should be out sometime before the end of the month. Additionally, as you know, the Alcoa mines, the Alcoa mine property to our north is sold. It's been transferred over to a new owner, which is SLR Properties, LP. We have received this small tome of documents from Alcoa to receive transferring all of Alcoa's existing non-exempt permits from Alcoa to SLR Properties. During a brief moment of optimism, I wrote the general manager's report. We may have this ready for December, and then I looked at this and realized it's probably in January before we're ready to bring it back. But we will process it and bring you back the request to transfer that ownership of those permits. Let's see. Number 3, the District Budget Committee has met for a second time and finalized a draft budget for 2022. A copy of that was supplied to you on your, along with the General Manager's report. The major changes that you will see, one, we do budget for lower revenue in 2022 than we did in 2021. So there is a lower total funding than we're anticipating. In addition, you'll see that there has been a change in hydrogeology. We've reduced it from $200,000 to $125,000 for the year. The hydrogeology budget fluctuates typically as we go through DFC cycles. Towards the end of the DFC cycle, there's more model runs and there's a lot more labor that ends performing, so we run that budget up. Now that we're coming to the end of the DFC cycle, we're kind of drawing that money back down again. And we're also using that to kind of make up some of the shortfalls that we did have in the budget due to that reduced funding. Additionally, if you look at the staff labor, you'll see that there is an increase in staff labor that's written in to cover the addition of a new staff member, an assistant general manager to come in and provide assistance both on the administrative side and on the field work side of the district. We've written that money into the budget as well, so that represents some of the other changes that you'll see. The rest of the line items are more or less in line with where they were. We start with a few programs that weren't necessarily needed, that have been written in and just kind of used as placeholders, so we start those as well to try and bring the budget into line based on the increased cost on one side and he had decreases in funding on the other. So we will bring that back in December for consideration by the whole board, but we want to give you a chance to take a look at it for a month and kind of, if you have questions, you know, rest of myself or Nick, one of the chairman of the budget committee, and we'd be happy to kind of help you work through that, work through those changes. And so, touching on that, we do have an applicant that came in for the assistant general manager's position. It's a gentleman from South Texas who has experience working in GCDs as both a field technician and an interim manager of the district. So he seems to offer some potential. We're going to have the executive committee meet with him in the coming weeks, have an interview, and if he passes muster with the executive committee, then we'll plan on having him come in and meet the whole board at some point. But that's where we stand with those items. As far as pending permits, we do still have the city of Bastrop permit for their excess ranch project. We've gotten the last of the documents that we sought from them, so we're in the process of doing the final reviews on that. It will probably be ready for to be declared administratively complete towards the end of the year, so we'll have it set for hearing early first quarter of 2022. Additionally, Aqua Water Supply Corporation has filed for a no increase amendment on their existing aggregated S-well field, so that's their well field south of southwest of Bastrop down on 304. They're not seeking any new water; they're just looking to add a new well to that existing field. I believe they're having some capacity issues on some of their older wells, and so they're just plugging a new well in on the existing permits with no change to the total amount of permitted production. We're processing through that, and that might be ready for y'all in the December meeting as well. Additionally, we also have a timely filed request by Recharge to renew their transport permit. We're processing that, and that should be before y'all in December as well. As far as upcoming meetings, we do have one more GMA 12 meeting. That'll be November 30th at 10 a.m. at the Post Oak Savannah offices, and it will also be online as all their other meetings happen. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
When do you think that you'll be back in North End County, checking wells and getting possible?
So, kind of like everything else, we do one big cycle, and then I go out and pick up stragglers whenever I've got time. So I can be up there. I think I may be back up there on Friday, getting a handful of wells. There were some on 405 I couldn't get to. And then I've got a couple of new people that call in that are closer up to your part of the world that I also need to stop by and check.
I was just curious, like, you go every 60 days, 90 days?
We normally do like one big cycle every 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
And then, like I say, if people call in, and, if people call in, or if we miss people during that 4 to 6 weeks, cycle, I'll go back out and pick them up just on, quiet morning or quiet afternoon. But I think I will, I need to confirm my schedule tomorrow, but I should be up there on Friday picking up just a handful.
Any other questions for Mr. Totten? If not, thank you, Mr. Totten.
Thank you, ma'am.
Agenda item number 10, discussion of Lost Pines Groundwater Conservation District legislation, related legislation, and/or activities occurring that affect or pertain to the district groundwater. Mr. Ellis, I know you are not under contract, but do you have any words of wisdom for us tonight?
Well, a little bit. I did want to report, obviously, the redistricting process is over, and you all are going to have a little slightly different representation than you've had in the past. And I'm sad to report that Representative John Cyrier has decided not to run for re-election. For those of you that weren't here and don't remember, when he was elected in a special election in 2015, he took the oath of office on March 3rd, days before the filing deadline. He was able to draft a bill, file a bill, and get the bill passed that protects Groundwater Conservation District board members from direct lawsuits. It says that you're immune from lawsuit and immune from liability for anything other than an abuse of office, a violation of your constitutional duties, or a conflict of interest. The first time he and I met on that issue, I told him he had no chance of passing that bill. I was dead wrong. We got it passed. He and I worked very closely on that. Got it through the House fairly quickly, got it through the Senate, and actually got it signed by the governor. So he has been a friend to groundwater conservation districts, not just this one, but all across the state. He's represented a couple of the tough districts here, Gonzales, and personally, I think he's done a good job. There are, right now, as far as I know, only 2 candidates, both Republicans, running for his seat in the 2022. Now, that's announced people. The deadline for filing candidacies, the beginning of that is coming up, and it's going to run through December. The primaries are going to will be the normal primaries until March. This district now, instead of having Karnes and Gonzales, is going to instead have Lee and Milam counties all included in that same district. So the district shifted significantly north. It still has Caldwell, where Syria is, but doesn't have those districts further south that bring his original district. Strongly recommend that you all talk to the candidates while we have this opportunity before the primary. I have found that candidates listen a whole lot better before the election than they do after. So let's get some commitments from those candidates if we can about support for the district, support for the district's goals, and see what we can get pledged as they're running. The good news is both of them appeared at this board meeting, and both of them said that they were very much in support of the district and in support of protecting the groundwater. And now we need to educate them on what that means. The biggest problem I have with members is that they all seem to be in favor of protecting property rights. It's just they have different opinions as to whose property rights they're talking about at that particular time. And the same members might change from day to day as to which property rights are most interested in protecting. I think they'll, to the man and woman up there, tell you, I don't want the little guy run over by the big guy, but at the same time, I want this farmer or rancher to be able to sell their water rights anywhere they want to. So those two things seem to be incompatible in my mind. That's a very razor thin line that you all have to walk. So we're not going to have another special session, obviously. That's just not going to happen between now and the next. I don't think it's going to be reason to have a meeting before the next session, regular session. It's going to be an interesting political year. Mayor O'Rourke is already announced for governor, and Greg Evans announced he's running for re-election. We have multiple candidates running for attorney general in the Republican primary and in the Democratic primary, including a current state senator, current lane commissioner, and a former justice of the Texas Supreme Court, both running for the Republican primary for attorney general. And then we have a senator who's running for the general land office. That's going to be a contested primary, I'm pretty sure. It's going to be a very, very full political year as people start to try to move up the chain. The House Natural Resources Committee is going to be submitting their request for interim charges, the things that they studied during this interim, by the 22nd of this month. They have already been submitted a few suggestions. I'm not sure which of those the chairman's going to accept and send on. The only thing that I'm going to be suggesting through this is that they take a look at the current round of DFC planning to see what they think, how well it's worked, what has actually resulted from that. They need to get information like the one you just heard from Dr. Mace, that we're already at about 80% of the total sustainable use of these aquifers. And if we're going to do something to try and maintain sustainability every place outside the Panhandle, now is the time to do it. Believe me, having cut my teeth on groundwater issues in the Subsidence District of Houston, where they were so far beyond sustainability, they had to cut people back by 90%. That's not something you want to do. And with the current litigation climate, it's also not something I don't think might even be able to accomplish at this point. It's a very, very tough situation out there. And again, when we talk property rights, we're talking about people laying subsiding beneath Galveston Bay, or people's right to pump their groundwater. They're both property rights. So it's going to be interesting interim. The Senate committee, I don't think, is going to have any groundwater interim charges. Senator Perry has said that he is going to reintroduce Senate Bill 152 from last time, which has the 4 items that he thinks are necessary to be adopted, including the provision on attorney's fees, and he's not interested in doing anything at all until that bill passes the way he passed it out of the Senate this last session. Now, he may not be the chairman of the Water Committee next time. I think it's likely he probably will be. I think he likes that committee. But since Jane Nelson has retired and she was chair of the Finance Committee, there could be a whole bunch of dominoes that fall, and he may get a much better committee. So if he gets an offered a better committee, I'm sure he'll take it. We'll have to see. The lieutenant governor in the past uses this time to reappoint the committee chairs. So we'll know who the finance chair is likely to be, it's going to be unless that person doesn't get reelected. And sometime in the next couple of months, and that we'll see where the rest of the dominoes fall after that position is named. And so the only items that I'm going to be suggesting to the House Natural Resources Committee are review the current DFC process, and I'm also going to suggest that we change that process to allow public comment to occur at the beginning of the process where it's much more meaningful than at the end of the process. What we're finding out, what people are finding out, is when you come in to talk about what I think the DFC should be, and you're already at the 11th hour, it doesn't do any good because they're not going to have time to review that change and get all of the factors to consider in time for the final vote. And that's obviously very frustrating to people. It's frustrating to those who serve on the board and try to tell people, I wish you had said that 3 years ago. So let's move that public participation process up much earlier in the process so people can come in and say, this is what I want you to look at. These are the DFCs I would like you to evaluate through those factors. And then evaluate them through the factors and figure out where you want to go from there. I have talked about changing the appeal process. I don't know if this is the time to do that, but I don't think we should be appealing the last desired future condition, because by the time the appeal process is over, it's already moot. Instead, what we should have is a process where people can come in and say, I want to petition you to require that you look at this particular DFC in the next round. Again, make it prospective, not retrospective. So those are the items that are going to be up. I know that the committee is being recommended to look at this issue of waste. And try to find a better definition of waste. I suspect that Chairman King's bill on requiring people to file basically an appeal bond before they can move up the appeal process from a district decision is likely to be investigated during the interim and proposed by him again next session. And there's also going to be some provisions from the Environmental Defense Fund recommendations on looking at groundwater data, how much data is available, how do we improve that data, where can that money come from, and maybe suggest, part of that will maybe suggest, will likely be a suggestion that TWDD needs to start kicking some money in to help support the GMA regional planning effort, so all of that's not coming out of pockets of the local ratepayers. So we'll have to see what the Speaker approves as the interim charges, and those probably will come out sometime, I'm guessing in December, maybe as late as January. So that completes my report, unless you all have any questions. I appreciate your confidence. I appreciate your renewing the contract. I do suspect we'll have another battle next session about whether or not you're going to be allowed to continue that sign contract like that. I'll be fighting real hard on that one, I promise. And, the thing that would be helpful for you to be talking to your candidates about as they're running is that the rural areas like this one, and you're lucky because you're very close to Austin. If you need to send a whole bunch of people to Austin, it takes you an hour to get there. That's not the case in the Panhandle. It's not the case in far west Texas. It's not the case in South Texas. Those areas need representation because they can't, the small rural areas don't have staff members that they can send to Austin on a moment's notice to go testify on a bill or go talk to their members. And if the members don't hear about the potential impact of that legislation on rural Texas, it's going to be hard for them to carry votes right away. So that's where people like me come in, is we represent your rural interests in those areas. We just lost, I lost to these meetings 5, turned out it's closer to probably about 3 to 3.5 members were lost from the rural areas to the urban areas. When you look at how the districts are drawn now, they've kind of cut up the urban areas and added big rural areas to those urban areas. And that means that that urban area now, it looks like a big rural district, but actually in population terms, the vast majority of that district is in that urban area. So at least 3 districts shifted over from being what I consider rural to what I now consider more urban district. And the same thing is slowly happening to all the Senate districts. And the urban areas already have enough votes to overrule everything else the rest of the state wants. If Houston, Dallas, and San Antonio agree and all vote the same way, that's going to happen. They've got all the votes they need to take care of it. The good news is if we can keep Houston and Dallas fighting so that they can't agree on what time it is, it's unlikely they'll all get together and gang up on everybody else. But if there is something that comes up, for example, we want to be able to go get that groundwater when we want to, and these groundwater conservation districts are barriers to that happening. And the cities all vote together, then we're going to see our authority curtailed, as it was when Senate Bill 1 passed, and the provision was added saying that we could not, this is back in 1997, we cannot prohibit exports. We have to treat an export just like we do every other pumper within the district. And that's been the law since that time, and we've lived with it. That was because the cities made an argument that we have to be able to go get water, and this is the only choice you'll need to use. One of the other issues I'd like to get promoted during this interim, but I don't think is going to come up, is this junior rights provision on innovation transfers of surface water. Since that passed in 1997, and if y'all can verify this for me, I don't think there's been a single innovation transfer approved by PCEQ since 1997. Because as soon as they get that innovation transfer, it becomes junior in priority to every other permit on that system. So it loses all of its value. So instead, that shifted the focus entirely to developing the groundwater and the movement of groundwater rights. I'm not personally opposed to moving groundwater if necessary, as long as we have the proper protections in place on the production side of that permit. And that's the important part, that we need to make sure we keep that in place. I'm very concerned about this fight that Mr. Ridge ending up in a legislative fight, and the potential there for a bill to pass that says something like you can't reduce a permit as long as there are bonds outstanding on the pipeline or something along those lines. I think that would be make our jobs even more difficult than they are. So I think it's going to be. We keep talking about it's just going to be a water session. I think from now on they're all water sessions, and it's just going to be a constant fight. Again, there's a bigger split between rural and urban now than there ever has been between Republicans and Democrats on these issues. So, again, I appreciate your time and appreciate your confidence in me and the renewal of the contract. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Where are those two candidates, are they from Bastrop County? That are running?
Yeah, I think they're both from Bastrop County. I think that's right.
Tom Glass.
Oh, is he Lee County? Okay. Does he know the branch in both counties, or is it just one county?
He's right on the edge, but he's on the knob.
Okay.
That's what I think he told us that,
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Ellis? Thank you very much, Mr. Ellis. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Agenda item number 11, consideration of a board workshop, conferences, meetings, and educational opportunities board members desire to attend.
I would like to attend the November CLE conference.
November CLE conference?
Okay. I would say it's a little short notice for November, but February, I think we can swing.
To February, do you have a date?
I don't know what it is.
Changing things.
Is it the Texas water, or is it changing?
It's changing things, water.
Changing water?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll see what information we can get and bring that back for the December meeting. See if it balances in.
I've got a circular on it. You haven't received it. I can pass it on.
It may be in my junk mail along with offers for new tires and asphalt remediation, so that would be appreciated.
Yeah, program now,
Yes, sir.
Anyone else?
Well, we'll come back and we can discuss it again in December. So we'll get the information out to the board and let y'all sort it out.
Okay, agenda item number 12, consideration of agenda calendar and events. We actually already considered our agenda calendar earlier. Are there any other events or anything else the board wish to speak to? All right, then we are finished for the meeting and we adjourn at 7:56 p.m. Thank you very much.